Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Sri Lanka, home to a population of 21 billion people, the population had grown by 5 million plus since 1981 census, which is the last census. It is located in South Asia and separated from the mainland portion of Indian subcontinent by the Gulf of Mannar and Pacific. Its main economic sector of the country are tourism, tea export, which is the largest export in the country, and apparel, textile, and rice production and other agriculture product. So today, Arif, and my colleague, which is Azim, Ashraf, Akid, and Shamil, will discuss about inflation and unemployment of Sri Lanka. As we all know that inflation refers to an increase of the level of prices of goods and services, while unemployment is a term referred to individuals who are unemployable but actively seeking job but unable to find a job. For your information, the current inflation rate is 4.56%, which is high, and Sri Lanka is currently facing preliminary stages of hyperinflation. Similarly, those obtained in Zimbabwe and Indonesia. So I'm going to pass to my friends to discuss about our topic today: inflation and unemployment of Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, Arif. Now I will explain about types of inflation and types of unemployment that occurs in Sri Lanka. First of all, inflation can be defined as the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. Inflation is typically a broad measure such as the overall increase in prices or the increase in the cost of living in a country. Type of inflation that Sri Lanka facing was cost push inflation. What does it mean by the increases of prices in production input? The reason that make the increases of price in production because the government has been forced to restrict the import of several essential commodities, including food items, which has been pushed the price of essential such as milk powder and rice much higher. Now about the type of unemployment. For the type of unemployment, what is meant by unemployment? Unemployment was when someone is willing and able to work but does not have a paid job. Unemployment rate is the percentage of people in the labor force who are unemployed. The unemployment rate in Sri Lanka is 4.56%. The unemployment rate requires identifying who is in the labor force. Type of unemployment that happen in Sri Lanka is structural unemployment, whereby the countries have a high unemployment rate that has been attributed to a mismatch of skill, to queuing for public sector jobs, and to stringent job security regulations. For your information, the current inflation rate in Sri Lanka was 39.1%, and now Sri Lanka is currently facing preliminary stage in hyperinflation, similarly to those that obtained in a country like Zimbabwe and Indonesia. So I would like to ask Shamil about the causes of inflation and unemployment that happen in Sri Lanka. You are welcome to start discuss now, Syamil.
Thank you, Azim. So, without wasting any time, I am Muhammad Syafiqri bin Muhammad Shukri will explain to the audience the causes of inflation and unemployment, the effects of inflation on the country's social and economic well-being. As we know, nations are also experiencing this problem of inflation this year, but this is not bad as Sri Lanka, with the inflation rate 21.5% year on year in March, more than 4 times the inflation rate of 5.1% in the previous year. So we should be thankful for not being tested as badly as Sri Lanka. For a start, among the causes of inflation in Sri Lanka is economic crisis that occurred in 2019 due to pile of debt, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020 that destroyed the tourism industry. Until finally Sri Lanka economy moved toward inflation, that is, the value of Sri Lanka rupees is still so low that people cannot afford to buy necessities of such service. Finally, on Friday 17 June 2022, Sri Lanka announced that they only had fuel stock for only 5 days amid a shortage of basic necessities that left almost 22 million people in trouble. In other words, experts they say Sri Lanka inflation pressure are caused by several factors such as rising consumption demand and disruption of the domestic supply and depreciation of exchange rate and rising global commodity price. So, Sri Lanka high unemployment rate has been attributed to a mismatch of skill, to queuing for public sector job, and to stringent job security regulation. Unemployment rate in Sri Lanka is expected to be 5% by the end of the quarter, according to Trading Economic Global Macro Model and Analytic Expectation. So within this rate, this is high unemployment rate for one country. So we continue on effect of Sri Lanka inflation in terms of social and economy. Social economy is an important issue to understand, as it has a direct effect on claim related loss and insurance costs, especially for business. The term refers to rising litigation costs and their impact on insurance claim payouts, loss ratios, and ultimately how much policyholders pay for the coverage. Sri Lanka increase was driven by the monthly increase in both food and non-food categories. Last but not least, inflation impacts the economy in the following ways. Higher profit since producer can sell at higher price. Better investment return since the investors and entrepreneurs receive incentive for investing in productive activities. The economic crisis is affecting the daily life of the population. Hospitals have reported shortage of medicine. Price increase has made food unaffordable for parts of population, and some people have already started to migrate to India to escape the effect of this crisis. So that's all from me. We can move to Ashraf on how to solve inflation in Sri Lanka.
Thank you, Shamel, for your talk. Now, I will talk on how monetary policy specifically to solve the problem. Realtor.com state that Sri Lanka double interest rate to tame inflation, stabilize the economy. Sri Lanka Central Bank doubled its key interest rate on Friday, raising each by unprecedented 700 basis points to tame inflation that has soared due to crippling shortage of basic goods driven by a devastating economic crisis. The heavily indebted country has little money left to pay for imports, meaning fuel, power, food, and increasingly medicine are in short supply. Street protests have been held nearly non-stop for more than a month, despite a 5-day state of emergency and a 2-day curfew. Another main point is independent central bank. Will Singhi said that he wanted to run the central bank independently without any external influence, and that he had been given the authority to do so by the president, and has been asked to expedite measures to get the country out of the current crisis. Inflation hit 80% and 80.7% in March. My last point for this Sri Lanka, how to solve the monetary policy, is there are no confident motion. What I want to talk about is at least 41 lawmakers have quit the ruling coalition to become independents. Though the government said it still has a majority in parliament, the government needs to address the financial crisis and work to improve governance, or we will move a non-confident motion. Sajid Premadasa, leader of the Samagi Jana Balawa Gaya opposition group, said in parliament, cases demonstrators pull down the metal barriers as they try to enter the main route toward the parliament during a protest against Sri Lanka President Gotabajaya Rajapaksa near the parliament amid the counter-economic crisis in Colombo, Sri Lanka, that happened in April 8, 2022. So that's all about my talk. The summary that I can add is central bank hike rate by 700 BPS. Sri Lanka beset by crippling economic crisis. Finance ministers seek debt moratorium financial aid. So, in summary, Sri Lanka have a bad debt. They have a bad so bad debt right now. I will show you a video about Sri Lanka.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad, and I'm going to present about fiscal policy, how fiscal policy solves the inflation problem that occurs in Sri Lanka. So, first and foremost, fiscal policy is a policy where the government use in to help them in controlling the government spending and taxes. So, in Sri Lanka, they also adapt fiscal policy to control the government spending and taxes in Sri Lanka. So in order to solve the inflation problem that occurs there, the government of Sri Lanka, they need to control the level of their spending by comparing the level of the spending of the government spending over the years to detect defect and misspend. Through that, they can analyze the government spending and see what's wrong and where to fix that. The government also added tax deferment in addition to a tax cut to assist people and businesses. What is tax deferment? Tax deferment means no taxes are paid until you take a withdrawal. This is so that the money you have can grow at a faster rate than it would in a taxable product. That means the people will not have to pay any taxes until they make any withdrawal. Next, the government of Sri Lanka, they also agreed to raise the tax from 8% to 12% in order to aid countries' rising inflation. The tax raise is very helpful in solving inflation and unemployment problem because the money gained from the tax paid of the citizens will be used in order to aid the inflation problem and unemployment. For example, it can be used in educational, in medical, and many other things. The government also raised interest rate to slow the economy and bring inflation down. This is to make sure the economy, business will run smoothly and decreasing the inflation problem that might affect the country. So that's all from me. Thank you.
You know it's not the same as it was in this world. It's just us. We know it's not the same.